Hi folks, we have a new moon in Gemini on May the 26th, tomorrow for me, in a little over 24 hours at 8:02 p.m. Pacific time. This is the fourth time I'm trying to record the video, so Mercury must be close to the sun because Mercury is technically combust at this point in time. So some of our communication, articulation, mercurial capacities may well be compromised as Mercury gets ready to have a tete-a-tete with the sun. I'm going to close this window because even though the backdrop is not flowing, why did I not close the window beforehand? Mercury must be coming. Let's just give it a reason. Let's just find meaning in everything. Okay. Given all the craziness of the astrology we experienced in March and April, when it was energetically, when there was so much focus on closing out matters related to the past and on some level, and especially in May and June until the middle of July, there's so much greater focus on creating the future. It's nice on some level to have astrology that doesn't require a lot of hand-wringing in my videos. You know that in March and April, I was practically doing a video every second day. And the videos had a kind of a, the sky is falling. Not really, but it was an astrologically intense time. You had Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, Mars retrograde, 2 eclipses. All these aspects being made to Saturn and Pisces. There was an element of urgency to end things and to create space for new beginnings. And then starting the middle of April, but certainly in May and in June, that emphasis on new beginnings is very present. This particular new moon, I can't remember a new moon video that I've done recently that is so benign in its astrology. However, I would argue that it's still not necessarily a benign time, but I'm going to make a case for it not being a benign. I just mean benign with regard to, I think there's still a lot happening, and I think there's still a lot that needs our focus and our attention. I don't think we can take our eye off the ball. And this idea of not being able to take the eye off the ball, I'm going to develop more in tomorrow or day after's weekly overview that I do for the week. Today, I'm going to remain focused on the new moon in Gemini because that's what I do in my new moon videos. The new moon, as far as I am concerned, is unaspected. Some astrologers will say that the new moon trines Pluto. The way I see it, the new moon occurs after the sun has trined Pluto in Aquarius, and the moon has trined Pluto in Aquarius, and the sun and the moon are in Gemini. And after making these trines to Pluto in Aquarius, they conjunct, and a new moon is created. That said, and the new moon, in and of itself, as far as I'm concerned, is not making any aspects. Okay, but it's still a new moon in the Gemini part of the chart, and we need to talk about it. It still inaugurates a 4-week period focused on the house occupied by Gemini in your horoscope, in your chart. Mercury must be combust. And you also know that I look at aspects that are approaching within a 5-degree orb that have nothing to do with the new moon. And when I look at a new moon chart, as far as I'm concerned, they're embedded or encoded into the new moon and the 4-week month that it creates. And those 3 aspects are Mercury trining Pluto, and Mercury is the ruler of this new moon, and Mercury is the dispositor of the chart because Mercury is in its own sign of Gemini. The second aspect out of the 3 is Mercury getting ready to conjunct the sun. That conjunction will be exact on the 29th in 4 days' time. And I will talk about that in the weekly overview. And then the third aspect that is very close, but is not going to become exact till the first quarter of next year is Saturn conjuncting Neptune in Aries. So now, dear ones who follow my videos and are so incredible, as far as I'm concerned, for doing so, and those of you who know your chart, and even, so now, if you're going to look at this new moon and this 4-week period that is going to be set up and created, now we get to talk about what all this is about. I will tell you that with this new moon, it will be, well, I don't want to say it's going to be helpful for you to know your chart. I don't think that's helpful. But those words came out of my mouth, and I will expand on it. Okay, so don't worry about it. Let's just focus on the new moon. But first, let's talk about what I think is more important right now. What are the things that we really need to talk about before we start to break down this new moon? For the past 24 hours, for the next 24 hours, you've heard me say this lots of times, your energy may be depleted. You may be in a kind of a dreamlike, spacey state. It may be hard to be active. That doesn't mean that there may not be work to do. There might be plenty of work to do. It may be that some of that work feels a little bit hermit-like. It may feel like it's something that you're doing in a secluded or an isolated manner. And the energy is introverted, maybe even somewhat anxious, and for some people, even a little depressed, spacey. Productivity may be a challenge. And there may be a strong need to recuperate. You are releasing the last month. You're releasing the last Taurus month. Remember, I look at months as being created by a new moon. The word month is derived from the word moon. As far as I'm concerned, the month of Taurus began on April the 27th. And we are now getting ready to end that month. And a new month is going to begin tomorrow on the 26th of May at 8:02 p.m. I think it would be helpful for us all to attune to the lunar cycle energetically, because it really does feel like a month is coming to an end and a month will be getting ready to begin. So for the next 24 hours, try to align with the energy, try to be kind to yourself, and if things feel anxious-making or hopeless or flat or energetically depleted, know that, like it always does once the new moon occurs, the wind is going to get behind your sails again. And for a few days after the moon will still be dark. Your energy and your intuitive energy, your emotional energy is still going to be relatively depleted. But about 3 or 4 days after the new moon, the crescent appears, the moon starts to gain more light from the sun, and she starts to separate from the sun, and she is no longer combust. And by combust, I mean she's no longer close to the sun, so it's not like she's dark. Remember, planets are full, and the moon is not a planet, I know, when they are opposite the sun. Planets do not have any light of their own. They reflect the light of the sun. So they take that energy, that power, and there is a whole set of astrology around what sort of power a planet has when it is visible, and how visible it is, and how invisible it is. And when it's invisible, typically it is lacking power. So the moon, that stands for ourselves and our energy and the way that we engage with the world and our productivity, is dark. It is currently on the wrong side of the new moon. But then after tomorrow night, 8:02 p.m. Pacific time, it will get on the right side of the new moon and start to separate from the sun. And somewhere, the moon and the sun are having a meeting and a conference. And the sun, our solar energy and our individual connection to source, gets to download information to the moon to say, here's what the agenda might be for the next, here's what the agenda is for the next 4 weeks when it comes to bringing the house occupied by Gemini in your birth chart. It's a new moon in Gemini, and the new moon starts a month of Gemini, bringing the house occupied by Gemini in your birth chart into alignment. What is the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and what actions do you need to take in order to bring the house occupied by Gemini in your birth chart into alignment? And you start that process. I know I'm saying stuff that a lot of you have heard me say before, but I'm just covering bases for people for whom this might be my first video. 2 weeks after the new moon, we're going to have a full moon, in this case in Sagittarius, related to this new moon. And over the next 14 days after the new moon, the wave is going to move towards the shore. The energy is going to increase and intensify, and then it will crash on the shore in about 2 weeks' time. And then after the full moon, the wave will start to recede again. And right before the next new moon in Cancer, it will get to this farthest from the shore depleted place. And then once the new moon happens and we get the new moon in Cancer, it will start to move towards the shore again. So that's our lunar cycle all the time. So the first thing to just say, given when I'm doing this, is just understand the two things that are most important in what I said so far. For the next 24, 48 hours, especially the next 24 hours, be gentle. If you have work to do, try to do it in a quieter way, in a kind of a focused way. Also remember that in the dark of the moon, you might get intuitive downloads. Things really become sort of the psychic realm, for lack of a better word, or spirit communicating to us, or being in this kind of spacey dreamlike state, or not being able to focus and not having the energy to tackle things. It's fine. The new moon will occur, the month of Gemini will start, and we'll move forward. And the second thing that I've said is the sun has been in Gemini for about 4 or 5 days already, illuminating the Gemini part of the chart. Mercury, the planet of communication and articulation and transactions, the winged messenger, Mercury that manages everything that is our mental capacity and mental energy, and our ability to articulate things to ourselves and to others through communication, typing, texting, writing, speaking, has also entered Gemini. And then today. And then the new moon occurs tomorrow, inaugurating a 4-week period of bringing matters related to the Gemini part of the chart, the house occupied by Gemini into your chart, into alignment. Now know and understand that the last of the personal planets, you know where I'm going with this, those of you who watch my channel, Venus enters Gemini on July the 4th. And for all of July, from July the 4th to July the 31st, Venus will be in Gemini. So Gemini season, for me, will end on July the 31st. Once Venus is done with Gemini, transiting Gemini. Okay? So the month of Gemini will end on June the 25th with the new moon in Cancer. By that time, the Sun and Mercury will be out of Gemini. And then Venus will come in on July the 4th and spend the rest of July in Gemini. And when Venus follows the Sun and the new moon and Mercury, she then can pick up on the activities and the actions that you have been doing over the next 4 weeks during the month of Gemini. She can then pick up on those actions and activities that you have been doing to bring the Gemini part of the chart into alignment and start to give you a sense of what is going to germinate. She can bring financial opportunities, relationship opportunities, creative opportunities. She can start to bring an element of luck into the picture, opportunity, something to move forward with, something that starts to bear fruit. It doesn't have to come to fruition, something that starts to bear fruit. So the importance of the actions that you take over the next 4 weeks to bring the house occupied by Gemini into alignment is going to be the soil, or a better word, maybe the foundation on which Venus, when she comes into Gemini after July the 4th, can start to give you a sense of out of the seeds that have been planted, what is going to come out of the soil, what is showing signs of bearing fruit, and delivering some sort of opportunity that you can build on. Now, the full moon in Gemini is not going to occur till November, December of this year, 6 months from the new moon. So that is roughly when we can expect things to really come to some sort of culmination or fruition. But this is not the time to be thinking about culminations and fruition as much as it is the time to be saying, where am I at against where I would like to be in the Gemini part of the chart, and what do I need to bring those matters into alignment? Okay, those are the two biggest things that I want to communicate as far as this new moon is concerned. And I want to communicate that up front for people who may not know their chart, may not understand astrology. And even if a lot of what I've said feels a little bit tiresome, the most important thing, if you're a layperson hearing this video, is just to start to connect to and see if this resonates for you. Do not take anybody's word, mine, anybody else's, on face value or on faith. See if it resonates for you. See if it makes sense for you. See if what I'm saying actually holds water for you. Just start to see, how does it feel before a new moon? How does it start to feel after a new moon? How does it feel as the moon starts to grow and as we head towards a full moon? There's plenty of stereotypes about what full moons are like, and they're not without basis. What is the week after a full moon like? I always find that the week after the full moon is the most energetically balanced and productive. And then as you head towards the next new moon, what happens to your energy? For anybody who's a skeptic of astrology, I will always say the two things I want you to just start to attune yourself to see if this resonates for you at all, is what is the lunar energy like with new moons and full moons for you? And what happens when Mercury goes retrograde? Can you feel the energy difference? And if you can, then there may be something that you want to then continue to deepen. If you can't, or you think it's all hogwash, in some ways, it is more empowering to not be dependent on something else or one of these sciences, so to speak. I will call it a science, insofar as, at least in the way that I try to practice my work, I'm constantly looking at the data that I receive through my readings to see if it validates my interpretations of what is going on. So you get to take it on for size. Now, for those of you who know more astrology and know more about your chart, and those of you who don't, continue to listen, because I'm going to try and talk about these aspects in a way that might be intriguing. So, well, you can do what you want. This might be a good time to do my homework. There are 3 ways to avail of my services. The free content that I post on my website, memberships for $6.99 a month, where I post sign-specific content currently. After I do this video, I'm going to do my onslaught of new moon and Gemini videos for all the rising signs. You can watch that content for your rising sign, your sun sign, your moon sign, if you like, but certainly for your rising sign. So those memberships take this content and make it more specific to your rising sign, $6.99 a month. Third way is you can get a personal reading with me. You can contact me using my email address, which is in the description box below, as is information about how to become a member, and I can send you information about rates. I am currently offering, now, my individual readings are what they are, but I also offer packages of minutes. And till the end of this month, I am offering my 300-minute package for $300, which is extraordinarily inexpensive. But again, so till the end of the month, if you want to get a package of minutes with me, 300 minutes for $300, you're welcome to email me and I can get you the information and you can do that. And that's only available to the end of the month. Those packages, the majority of my clients are in the United States. Those packages typically go for $475. Okay, I will leave it at that. Let's now dig in a little bit deeper to this new moon. The biggest thing we have to consider with this new moon are the trines to Pluto. The Sun and Mercury trine Pluto in Aquarius, Sun and the Moon in Gemini, and then Mercury trines Pluto on the day of the new moon, but after the new moon. And the Mercury trine Pluto, Mercury being the ruler of this new moon and the dispositor of the chart of the new moon, trining Pluto is embedded into this new moon's energy. A trine is a harmonious aspect, a supportive aspect. And we are moving towards, in 2026 and 2027, a really important and supportive trine between Uranus when he enters Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius. So we're starting to have the soil for that transit of Uranus trining Pluto start to get aerated and prepared by these faster moving planets, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, trining Pluto as they enter Gemini. And Uranus is not going to move towards trining Pluto for a second, for a while. But these trines to Pluto from Gemini are intriguing. And the thing that I would encourage you all, those of you who know your chart especially, to think about is, what could be the connection between taking action in the Gemini part of the chart that would help with the Plutonian transformation of the Aquarius part of the chart? Now, as I've said to you before, Pluto, when he transits a certain part of the chart, and it is a long transit, Pluto entered Aquarius completely at the end of 2024 and will be in Aquarius till 2042. So it is a long transit. But Pluto's transit through any house or any part of the chart means that Pluto is trying to transform that part of the chart for our benefit thoroughly and completely. And that means that Pluto is trying to remove bonds, relationships, attachments, that's the word, that he knows, I'm not going to say understands, knows, are not right for us and not good for us and not constructive to us. And particularly, as I've said to you, when Pluto is transiting the first 5 degrees or so of the sign and the house that he enters, which he currently is and will continue to do till next year, through next year, he is working on dismantling and removing anything that he feels should not remain as part of our reality. The two challenges with Pluto's work is our attachment to something and we're not getting the message and we're holding on to something for dear life, which will cause pain. And not just pain, can cause it's a little bit like holding on to a tractor that has this de-weeding thing. And as it is de-weeding, we're holding on to it and it can be painful. Or what can create a challenge, and what is often associated with Pluto's transits, the idea of power struggles, is because somebody else is very keen to keep us in a certain place with a certain attachment. And Pluto's like, this is not right. This is not good for you. We need to dismantle it. So for now, as the sun goes through Gemini, and then Mercury, the planet of communication, goes into Gemini, and Mercury, the planet of communication and articulation and transactions, and Mercury's trine with Pluto is embedded into the next 4 weeks or so. It is worth it to ask that as you bring matters related to the house occupied by Gemini into alignment, what may need to be done from a communication perspective in the Gemini part of the chart that could really support Pluto's transformation in the Aquarius part of the chart, and possibly the nature of that transformation right now may be the demolishing, the removal of bonds and contracts and attachments that Pluto knows, not deems, knows are not good or right for us. So what aspect of stabilizing, what aspect of bringing the Gemini part of the chart into alignment involves or could contribute to Pluto transforming the Aquarius part of your chart to your benefit, but also right now, given where Pluto is, retrograde and within those first 5 degrees of Aquarius, going over ground he has already gone over. How could bringing the Gemini part of the chart into alignment contribute to Pluto trying to dismantle and remove whatever it is in the Aquarius part of the chart that is stopping you from creating the right reality for yourself in the Aquarius part of the chart? Mercury is also getting ready to conjunct the Sun. So certainly for the rest of this week, and I'll cover this in the weekly overview, from a communication standpoint, expect an element of crossed wires. Me having to start this video 4 times, stumbling on facts, not quite being clean and not clean. Sorry, that's not the word. Not being clear, crisp mentally. Mercury is dark. Mercury is going to conjunct the Sun in 4 days, and we're going to have a new Mercury, just as we're going to have a new moon. When personal planets conjunct the Sun, it's like they burn off a certain amount of detritus, stuff that has accrued. Again, it's like an etch-a-sketch that is being shaken clean. It's a cleansing. It's a born-againness. It's a baptism of fire with the conjunction with the Sun. But it's really that our connection to Source is communicating with our ability to make sense of things and draft them in our minds and draft them and communicate them through our words, written and spoken. But it's also, it's a little bit like, just as with every new moon, the moon, which stands for us engaging with the 3D world that we're in, the Sun, it's like a relay handoff. The Sun gives something to the moon, a directive. The Sun is the planet of awareness. It has entered the part of the chart already where the new moon is going to occur. The Sun has already shown its spotlight all over this part of the chart that it has entered. Then the moon joins it and the Sun says, here, this is what you need to do over the next 4 weeks to bring this part of the chart into alignment. And you're going to have the surge of increase in energy almost to the point of overwhelming intensity as you get to the full moon 2 weeks from now, and that energy is going to start to wind down. And then I'll give you instructions for how to bring the Cancer part of the chart 4 weeks after we're done with the Gemini part of the chart. Similarly, Mercury, whenever he conjuncts the Sun, which he does often, not as often as the moon, but often enough in any calendar year, if you want to look at it that way, there's a cleansing of mental energy. And the Sun is able to say to Mercury, say to the winged messenger, this is what you need to try and achieve through communication. This is what you need to try and get clarity on. These are the facts that we're trying to ascertain. These are the contracts and agreements that we're trying to secure. And then as Mercury starts to separate more and more from the Sun, he's able to do so. There's also, with every Mercury-Sun conjunction, there is a connection to the Mercury cycle that is currently occurring. And this is something I will cover either in the weekly overview, or I'll do a separate video on this. As we head towards Mercury's conjunction with the Sun, we are finishing up an important phase of the Mercury cycle in Aries. Do not get too hung up on what I'm saying right now if it's not going to make sense In the next few days, I'll do a video that will try and make sense of this. And we are getting into the next phase of that Mercury cycle in Aries, where Mercury is trying to build something in the Aries part of the chart. Like a drum beat. While everything is going on, Mercury is building something in the Aries part of the chart. Mercury cycles are very productive, very productive. So on the heels of the moon and the sun going into a conference room and having their conference and the energy of the moon not being available to us until that happens, the new moon, and then the new moon occurs and the moon exits that conference room and says, all right, let me move forward. 4 days after the new moon, Mercury goes into a room with a conference with the sun and then emerges from it. So Mercury's powers are going to be a little bit absent to us. What it does is that Mercury now starts to move ahead of the sun. So when it comes to Cancer season beginning, Leo season beginning, Mercury is going to enter those parts of the chart first. Then the sun, then the new moon will occur, then Venus will follow. So what we're going to start to see in the Cancer part of the chart and the Leo part of the chart is communications will start first. The sun will then come in to illuminate those parts of the chart as part of his annual sojourn through all the different houses. And then the new moon will happen, and then Venus will come in to try and provide some resolution and some good fortune. The third of the aspects that is occurring is Saturn conjuncting Neptune. And this is all very tentative in a sense. Well, okay, here's the deal. Saturn is going to go retrograde. It is May the 25th. Saturn entered Aries yesterday on the 24th. Saturn is going to go retrograde on July the 13th. So Saturn coming into Aries, he does not make it very far, and he certainly does not conjunct Neptune exactly. It's May the 25th. In about 45, 50 days, Saturn is going to go retrograde. And then on September 1st, he's coming back to Pisces to continue to help us finish up stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart all the way to February. Those of you who have been watching my channel know how important stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart is to our moving forward. But here's what I want to say about this. After I'm done with this new moon in Gemini video and the new moon in Gemini videos for all the rising signs, my next assignment is going to be talking about Saturn moving into Aries for this summer and then for 2 years after February. And I'm going to need to do the videos for each rising sign about Saturn. So we will talk about this in more detail. I think right now what is important to just understand in the Aries part of the chart, where we had the last new moon solar eclipse on March the 29th, and that new moon solar eclipse is going to continue to exercise its influence till the end of the first week of June. And indeed, next week, the next 2 weeks may have eclipsy occurrences occur. And, sorry, that was a little weird, but I was trying to find a different word, a more elegant way of saying it. So ignore the self-deprecation there. Let's carry on. Saturn coming into Aries and being so close to Neptune over the summer till September the 1st is very much about us taking matters related to the Aries part of the chart seriously and responsibly. And if we have Neptunian goals in the Aries part of the chart, something creative, something spiritual, something renunciatory, something philanthropic, something musical, something inspired by the muses, then Saturn will want us to start to concretize those. If Neptune's entrance into Aries is compromising our ability to make sound decisions and to take responsible action in the Aries part of the chart, Saturn will help counter that. The lessons will come quickly, and Saturn will give you the ability to set boundaries with others, but also with yourself so you don't self-sabotage. I like having Saturn with Neptune. So in the Aries part of the chart, where we have a Mercury cycle that's entering its second of 4 phases in the middle of this coming week, and where we have the new moon solar eclipse in Aries exercising its influence again over the next 2 weeks, the fact that Saturn is at least, let's just say, reaching for Neptune's hand, even if those hands don't connect, is, in my opinion, a positive, constructive, and helpful sign to we do have access to Saturn's energy to act responsibly to our highest potential in the Aries part of the chart over the next 2 weeks. When the personal planets entered Aries, starting the end of March, in April, Mercury and Venus entering Aries again after they went direct, and they all conjuncted Neptune. It's possible that in the Aries part of the chart there was growth and there was forward movement, but some of the choices that have been made may have had a kind of a Neptunian quality. The taking of opportunities where you might be giving more than you might be receiving. The making of choices in such a way that it was not able to capitalize on acting in a way that would most benefit us materially or in the 3D realm. And almost like, why did I do that? Why, when I was getting an opportunity, did I somehow do something to sabotage it? We enter this kind of spacey, unable to grasp things state. And Saturn coming into Aries yesterday till September the 1st will at least try and help us say, let's if you're building something in the Aries part of the chart, let's take ourselves seriously and act as if we actually deserve the best possible outcome. And let's start to show up to those responsibly. So it's an intriguing thing that we're having this new moon, and the next 2 weeks may also bring eclipsy occurrences. And because it's a new moon solar eclipse, for a lot of people, it may be opportunity to expand and make the most of these Aries solar eclipses that have been going on since March 2023. Now, a new moon, often even within 48 to 72 hours, can bring a new moon, even within 48 to 72 hours, can bring subtle but unmistakable opportunities that we need to respond to. And indeed, with the sun having come into Gemini on the 20th of May, the sun having trined Pluto on the 24th, yesterday, Mercury having entered Gemini today, it wouldn't even surprise me if already certain things have started to happen that make you feel like, oh, something has happened and I need to respond to it, or I need to do something about it. And the doing something about it may actually support Pluto in ending what it needs to end, or break down what it needs to break down, or demolish what Pluto needs to demolish in the Aquarius part of the chart, so I can construct something new and relevant, more aligned with what is right and best for me in the Aquarius part of the chart. Now, the opportunities a new moon brings aren't necessarily, so an example could be, depending on where this new moon is occurring, you hear from someone, or you hear something, because Mercury is also involved. Something happens related to the people who sit in the Gemini part of the chart, the house occupied by Gemini in your chart. And at this point in time, it may have more of a feeling of, oh, here's a stimulus, and part of this response has to do with how that response can help Pluto in the Aquarius part of the chart construct what he's constructing there and demolish what he needs to demolish in order to construct the right edifice structure for us in the Aquarius part of the chart. After the new moon occurs, whether those subtle but unmistakable new moon opportunities occur within 48 to 72 hours of a new moon, whether they take a week or two to show up, those tend to be more expansive in the Gemini part of the chart. Those tend to be doors opening, something you can apply to, grasp onto, hold onto, build on. So not everything to do with the Gemini part of the chart has to do with demolishing things to create the right edifice in the Aquarius part of the chart. There may be things that occur in the Gemini part of the chart after the new moon, subtle but unmistakable opportunities that allow you to bring the Gemini part of the chart into alignment in exciting, positive, fruitful ways. The next right step. Just remember that it's during the next 4 weeks that you're creating the foundation and taking action to bring the Gemini part of the chart into alignment so that Venus, after July the 4th and for the rest of July, can actually have something to build on. So it's time to start to meditate and think about the Gemini part of your chart. What actions may need to be taken to help Pluto transform the Aquarius part of the chart to your benefit, which may mean right now loosening ties and bonds that are not right for you. But also, when it comes to thinking about how to bring the Gemini part of the chart into alignment, you may need to be thinking about what you need to do there that could be constructive. In the Gemini part of your chart. Actions to take to bridge the gap between where things are and where you would like them to be. That's all I have to say about this new moon. As I said, it's an unaspect new moon. I'm surprised I've gone on for 42 minutes. I thought I'd be done in 20 minutes. There is something about this new moon and what I have said that if you do know your chart, and I'm not, please be clear, I'm not saying this to plug my membership videos. But if you, for example, know and understand your chart, try and understand what happens every year when the sun goes over that house and what those because it is an unaspected new moon and we're at a phase right now that is all about trying to build the future. It's not all about it. We still have to keep an eye on the ball in the Pisces part of the chart and continue to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart if there are pending activities there. Some of the pressure in the Pisces part of the chart may have been eliminated, but don't take a risk. If there's still stuff that needs to be done, do it to set those boundaries or to show up responsibility to handle matters. If for some of you, you feel like you've already done the best that you can and there's nothing else to be done, I spoke to someone earlier today where it felt like, okay, maybe for now things are done and maybe something will show up between September of this year and February of next year where the Saturn moving into Pisces is going to be clear to understand, then that's fine. You're fine. But so far, right now, so much of the energy has a kind of a let's work towards building the future, that some aspect of this, what does a new moon in the Gemini part of your chart mean every year around this time? It will help you to have a relationship with your chart to figure that out. And knowing how the Gemini part of your chart can support, our actions in the Gemini part of the chart can support the Plutonian transformation in the Aquarius part of the chart is very much the primary agenda over the next, is very much one of the two primary agenda items of this new moon. The other agenda item is just to bring the Gemini part of the chart into alignment. And it could be that whatever has to be done in the Gemini part of the chart is actually contributing less to Pluto building something as opposed to Pluto clearing the ground so that the right foundation can be laid. And that clearing the ground may involve removing people, situations, things, that could be attachments involved that are not right for you in the Aquarius part of the chart, that pose a risk. And the risk being posed is that it can somehow thwart our journey, why we are here, the pursuit of our authentic path. And that's where Pluto, it's interesting, so many people associate Pluto with people who have control over us. But the only reason why those people show up with Pluto is not because they represent Pluto as much as Pluto is trying to get us to free ourselves of those influences. And those influences then start to become very prominent because they may rebel against that freedom, or giving us, more accurately, giving us the freedom that we need in order to move forward on the path that is right for us. All right, my darlings. Happy new moon. I will start working on those rising sign videos and getting them out there. If you're interested in a reading with me, my email address is in the description box below, or the $300 300-minute package. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. When you subscribe, there's a bell icon next to the subscribe button. When you click the subscribe button, it'll give you the option to click the wiggly bell on top. Click that, you'll be notified when I do new videos. You can contribute to this channel by using the thanks button below or donating. The information on donations is in the description box. You can contribute to this channel for free by liking this video, commenting on it, and feel free to share if you find this content useful, or any of my content. Feel free to tell other people about it as well. Thank you for watching my content. Thank you for being a subscriber. Thank you for being a member. For those of you who are, I remain just massively grateful for what this work has become for me over the past, really 10 odd years, but certainly over the past 2 or 3 years especially. Anyway, thank you. Take care.